July 20th, 1969, the day America watched in awe as a 10-year goal set by President John F. Kennedy became reality. And astronaut Neil Armstrong stepped onto the surface of the moon.
We had rehearsed this dozens of times.
John Wolfram wasn't watching. He was on board the USS Hornet hundreds of miles off the Hawaiian coast, training for what was to happen 4 days later.
A 20-year-old seaman actually being involved in this space recovery was remarkable in itself.
And he was just one of 9,000 men on 9 ships and 54 aircraft who began July 24th, 1969 at 2 in the morning, watching and waiting for the call. Whoever was closest would rescue Armstrong, Michael Collins, and Buzz Aldrin after their capsule re-entered the Earth's atmosphere and splashed down in the Pacific. Wolfram, the young Navy SEAL standing in the doorway of the helicopter, got the go-ahead just before 1 in the afternoon.
But to be actually the first guy to jump out of that helicopter, I mean, it was this awesome, magnificent to be the guy, the first guy that would meet and greet the astronauts who just come back from the moon.
He hadn't met these men until the day he peered into their capsule and got an okay from Armstrong.
There wasn't a whole lot of communication except just bright eyes, smiles, and, you know, a lot of thumbs up. This is the Look magazine that came out right after the Apollo 11 in 1969 in July. And inside they've got a full-page picture of us in the capsule. That's me on top with the flowers.
Flowers? The 60s decals got Wolfram, a self-described prankster, and others into trouble with NASA on the Apollo 10 mission, so they just had to make a reappearance all over his wetsuit. Was NASA angry?
It was such a remarkable recovery, nobody wanted to mess with it, and so instead they gave me a medal.
That medal sits alongside such impressive memorabilia as gold foil from the capsule hull and a personal message from the first man on the moon.
To John Wolfram, who shared our great adventure, Neil Armstrong, Apollo 11.
It's almost like a powder.
And Armstrong crosses Wolfram's mind most every time he glances up into the night sky.
Any time that I look up at the moon, you know, I get this little tingling sensation. You cannot ever forget something as monumental as that.
The Eagle has landed. Okay, Neil, we can see you coming down the ladder now.
Everyone held their breath the night Neil Armstrong stepped off the lunar module and onto the surface of the moon. And America didn't collectively exhale until he, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins made it back through space, back through Earth's fiery atmosphere, into the Pacific Ocean, and home. The first person they saw after splashdown, July 24th, 1969, 20-year-old Navy SEAL John Wolfram.
And our helicopter got there just in the nick of time, and the other people in the other helicopter were standing in the door ready to go. And the order came, move out of the way. And our helicopter came in, and I was in the door, and I jumped into the water all by myself. But to be actually the first guy to jump out of that helicopter, I mean, it was this awesome, magnificent.
Wolfram secured the capsule, knocked on that small window, and got the thumbs up from Armstrong.
We did not want to lose the astronauts or the moon cargo, the rocks, the samples. And so their safety was utmost to us.
The men were safe, and it probably wasn't until the astronauts were being flown back to the USS Hornet waiting nearby that people noticed Wolfram's wetsuit covered in flower decals.
You got to remember the 60s, you know, it was the Flower Power Day, hippies, peace, you know, love, not war. On Apollo 10, we put one of those flower decals on that hatch window. NASA had a fit.
The self-described prankster and his 2 frogmen buddies had done their job and were waiting in the ocean for the Hornet to come scoop them up.
We just hung out and took some souvenirs off the capsule. I took some hunks of that gold foil, put them down my wetsuit, and we played King of the Mountain on top, you know, and just goofed around until the ship came.
Wolfram has that gold foil today and a medal for a perfect recovery and remarkable memories.
You cannot ever forget something as monumental as that. And when I see a full moon, I think of the astronauts walking on it. I think of us out on that ship most every time I look at it.